So, as like throughout my life, I've generally been in my friend group. I've kind of been the guy who is a bit of a liability on like a night out or something. Like, I tend to be the guy who just overdoes it, right? Gets a bit too drunk or whatever. And I look back at a lot of nights out with quite sort of negative feelings, because I just remember waking up in the morning and just with a splitting headache, and I'm just like sitting in someone's sofa, and I'm just like, I don't even remember how I got here, and then it all starts sort of coming back to me, and I have all the negative images, and it's like, oh man, like I really overdid it last night, and then everyone will be like, oh man, you were so drunk last night, you're so drunk, and they start telling all these stories, and it's really horrible. I mean, it's kind of whatever, like it's part of going out in one sense, but it is also quite a negative experience, sort of waking up the next morning and you think, oh, God, I overdid it a bit. I remember one time I went out with a mate of mine. It was like a music mate, and we both did like an open mic somewhere, and we went out in this town in Birmingham, like where he lives, and it was just a small like provincial town in Birmingham, but it was it was crazy, like how many people were like out on a Saturday night, and like how many bars there were. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the night was a bit of a blur, but like I really remembered like we just kept going to all these different clubs and stuff like that, and they were probably a bit better because I was drunk, but still, it's really weird. And one thing I just realised about myself is that I do have like a propensity to sort of overdo it a bit. I remember waking up that morning and just with a splitting headache, and I just we just gone to bed at this other person's house, and I remember I had like, a pack of cigarettes in my pocket, and I just took them out of my pocket and just opened it up, and the entire packet was empty, and it was like I just smoked like an entire pack of cigarettes that night, or like near to an entire pack, and like my throat was sore, and anyway, the point I'm getting at is I've always been this guy who like has always slightly overdone it while drinking, and part of that is I've just kind of accepted it. I've just accepted that like a bit like this, and as a result, like I should just be careful around alcohol generally. And look, this is a caveat to what I'm saying, really. Like, this shouldn't be interpreted as like medical advice or any of that. This is just my own experience, just my own perspective, explaining what's worked for me. At the end of the day, this is a free platform, within reason. So I'm just giving my own perspective. But I've always thought like, I'm just gonna be careful with alcohol, whatever. And so I've never really drunk on my own. I've only ever drunk in a social situation, because I've always thought if you start drinking on your own, it's a slippery slope, and you just become an alcoholic basically. And there is a lot of truth in that, right? And like I say, it's a touchy subject, whatever. So I don't want to cast any assertions too strongly. But one thing that I've just realised recently is actually there's a bit of a flaw in this sort of argument that I've made about like, oh, don't drink alone. Because what I've realised is it sort of stops you from the opportunity of just enjoying one drink. And really that is the key to like having a good relationship with alcohol, basically, is to be able to have just one drink and just leave it at that. And that's really what you want to practice, basically. You just want to practice, you want to get good at just having one drink and leaving it at that. And the trouble, what I found is that if I only drink socially, right? People always say that, right? Only have a drink socially. The trap I fall into is that I don't really give myself the opportunity to only have one drink, because if I'm drinking socially, it's likely I'm going to have a few more, and if I have a few more, like, it's just practice. I'm just practicing drinking quite a lot to the point of getting drunk, right? Because that's usually the situation in which I end up drinking, you know. And so, actually, it's not a great way of going about it. And yeah, I mean, this is one thing that I think the Europeans, like the continental Europeans, have done so much better than us Brits, is they're really good at just having one drink. You know, like I remember, like I went to like do this Italian course in Italy, and like I met quite a lot of Italians like during it, and like we'd go out for a drink every now and again, you know, with some like of the locals that I met through the course, and by British standards they were quite boring, you know, because they just wouldn't drink that much. Like we'd go to some cafe or like some bar or something, and they'd have like one like sort of bottle of beer and then just leave it at that, and then, you know, maybe an hour later they get another one, and they just didn't have the same kind of need to just constantly get pints down you that like you do in British drinking culture. And it's because they've just practiced it. They practiced just having like one drink. And what I realised is basically the secret to having a good relationship with alcohol is basically just practicing having just one drink and then leaving it at that. And I have to be able to do that. I have to be able to put myself in an environment where I can practice that. And it's very difficult to practice that in a social environment where the common thing to do is just drink loads. So I have to find some other place to practice it. And the other thing I think is the other flaw with only drinking on a social occasion is one, there are some social occasions where you actually don't really need to drink. Like, it's not really I could go without it, to be honest. You know, whether it's, I don't know, a social occasion where like I need to get up early or whatever. Like, I don't really need to drink. But then there are also some occasions where I'm on my own and it's actually like a really good opportunity to drink. Like, you know, recently I had like a big business win that was really exciting for me. And it had been a long week and I got off the call and I was just like, you know what, let's celebrate, you know. And I just went to the fridge and I just opened a beer and just drank it. And just sat outside and, you know, had my supper, and it was a really nice moment. And, you know, I got to the end of that beer, I finished that beer, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'd really love another beer right now, but this is enough. And so I didn't. And this is basically what I'm getting at, is just practicing that sort of circuit of just being like, you know what, that's 90% of the experience that I need, so I'm going to stop it there. And yeah, so like obviously it's a difficult one because I don't want to recommend people drink alone or whatever, but the point I'm trying to make, the wider point I'm trying to make really, is you have to practice. If you're going to drink, if you're going to sort of decide to have a relationship with alcohol, you know, and you know, there are some cultures that don't drink at all, but you know, most cultures, you know, all Western cultures, they do alcohol as a part of life. And if it's going to be a part of life, you have to understand how to deal with it, rather than kind of, you got to go into alcohol with a plan, just like how you got to go into your work with a plan, or your relationships with a plan, or, you know, any vice, you know, pornography, eating junk food, stuff like that. You can't just get rid of these things that exist, and you have to develop a kind of relationship with it, and take the positive aspects of it, and to control it. So yeah, this is what's worked for me, and maybe there's something you can try out in this video that you found helpful. As always, top link in the description if you do want to get involved with someone on coaching. Be great to hear from you, and I'll see you in the next video.